to Station 31. You read me? Found something in the ice. We need some help down here. Can anybody hear me? We found something. We found something. We found something.
Fire's got the temperature up all over the camp. Won't last long, though.
Neither will we.
How will we make it?
Maybe we should. Why don't we just wait here for a little while? See what happens.
In phase 2, create an impassable barrier. A gauntlet, if you will.
Welcome to the Hollywood Gauntlet.
I need you, Dex. This is a bad one. Worst yet.
I don't need this no more. I don't want this no more.
There has been too much violence, too much pain.
I'm telling you, Rat, if this girl can't smell your qualifications, then who needs her, right?
The sun will come out tomorrow, so you gotta hang on till tomorrow.
What is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of your women.
They're here.
Just walk away.
This guy is a wrecking machine.
You know, you got a big mouth.
Why don't you come out and close your mouth, boy? Come on.
Buried alive. Sean!
Maybe you just probably imagined it.
I couldn't have imagined it.
Maybe it was a pervert or deformed kid or
A
something.
deformed kid.
A Blade Runner's job is to hunt down replicants. Manufactured humans you can't tell from the real thing.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Oh man, this isn't happening. It only thinks it's happening.
Garp.
Garp.
Garp?
Yes, Garp.
Sounds like a fish.
Hello, this is Chuck to remind Bill to shut up. Awesome! Totally awesome!
After the enormous success of Jaws in the summer of 1975 and Star Wars in 1977, the fertile period between Memorial Day and the end of August soon became the battleground known as the summer movie season. Summer 78 provided Grease and Jaws 2, Heaven Can Wait in Hooper, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke and Capricorn 1. In summer 79 we saw Alien in Apocalypse Now, The Muppet Movie and Meatballs, Manhattan and Moonraker, Rocky 2 and 10, Blake Edwards' 10. Summer 80 was dominated by The Empire Strikes Back, with the Blues Brothers and Used Cars, and Airplane with The Shining. By the time of summer 1981, the studios embraced fantasy and escapism entertainment programmed with the latest in technical advancements in visual effects and camera stabilizers. With Raiders of the Lost Ark, Superman 2, Stripes, The Cannonball Run, Clash of the Titans, For Your Eyes Only, Arthur, An American Werewolf in London, Blowout, Body Heat, Dragon Slayer, Outland, Escape from New York, Excalibur, and The Howling, how could Hollywood ever top it?
I'm Ridley Scott. I've just completed production on my latest picture since Alien.
I realized that I really couldn't remake the thing from the movie. It just wouldn't work out. So we went back to the short story. It's more about a creature that can become you rather than kill you.
Ghost stories usually avoid seeing ghosts. And when they do see ghosts, they're three-dimensional and they're real people. So this is a real golden opportunity to do a spirit coming down the stairs for the first time.
Knowing how high the stakes were, the studios put their trust in brands they knew they could count on, like Stallone.
For the first time in my life, I'm afraid.
Spielberg.
A.T. was a gift that came from the heavens for me.
And the man who made Alien.
It's a kind of tongue-in-cheek idea of what could actually happen if industry becomes so large a conglomerate, became so large that, let's say, it developed into aerospace, let's say it developed into space probes looking for mining, and another side to that company could be genetics and genetic engineering.
Cheech and Chong were back, along with ghosts and video games, Singing Orphans and Spicoli, Nice Aliens and Nasty Aliens, Bounty Hunters and Road Warriors and other things even in 3D.
Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D.
4 sequels, 1 remake, 1 Broadway adaptation.
It's the hard knock life.
Even 1 sequel to a Broadway adaptation.
Then get ready for another term at Rydell High.
Enough to make summer lovers out of us all.
Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone.
12 men have just discovered something.
Dead men don't wear plaid.
Conan.
The Road Warriors.
Rocky 3. Star Trek 2.
Poltergeist.
E.T.
Blade Runner.
Tron.
Garp.
Garp.
Night Shift. The Wall.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Each one cementing a place in the hearts and minds of millions of moviegoers, instantly inspiring a new generation of artists, writers, cinematographers, directors, editors, and musicians. Science fiction, fantasy, futuristic, comedy, action-adventure, high school, horror, drama, experimental, sequel. In each of these titles, you will find a film that defines that genre.
Do you have a guy like me in class every year? You know, a guy who you make an example of.
But what was the summer of '82 really like before you knew you were about to go see a new classic film that would be your all-time favorite every week at the cinema? I'm your host, John Jansen. Welcome to the Hollywood Gauntlet. Joining me on the panel for this flashback discussion is John Hargrove.
MTV was launched in August of '81. At this point, we're talking May '82. Brand new.
Michael Stevens.
I love the story about how Harv Bennett comes to him as they're shooting that last scene and says, okay, how can we do this? How can we kind of plant that seed, but leave it sort of vague?
And Ric Silva.
I was a weird, impressionable young youth, and you're right, there was much literature on it, so I didn't really know what he looked like or anything, and being a Spielberg movie, you know, you kind of get into it, and I remember being freaked out by E.T.
So, summer of 1982. Anybody's first memories?
Star Trek II, I'd say. That's the first one that pops into my mind.
Was that the one you were looking forward to?
Yeah, it was, just because, you know, I was a young kid, and space fantasy was number one on my plate, so that's what I went to.
You had no Star Wars movie coming out this summer.
No, we were dry that year, but, you know.
Well, summertime back then, as you are painfully aware, was all about baseball. It was all about summertime. I mean, I'm 12 years old, you know, growing up in the South. Certainly for me, looking forward to Star Trek II. Star Trek II ran deep, but Blade Runner.
Yeah.
That, you know. Wait, you mean Han Solo's doing something else? What film is that? That guy did Alien? That guy? Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we've been kind of spoiled with space films because we had Outland the year earlier, which sort of tied into that whole Alan Dean Foster and Alien kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So while it wasn't really connected to Alien, it felt like it kind of space was, and some of the production design and that whole new attitude of doing people in space, but in a very worn down, very used environment.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it definitely tapped into that style for sure.
Blade Runner just promising this idea of a bounty hunter chasing action adventure. It was like, it was hard not to think it was going to be like a Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. So yeah, certainly high on the looking forward to list.
And admittedly, anything sci-fi was just check.
Yeah,
it was going to happen.
Yeah. What about you, Hargrove?
Raiders of the Lost Ark blew my mind just the year earlier. I had recently moved to Houston from San Diego. I was meeting new people, meeting new friends, things like that, figuring out, okay, the things that I like, what do other people like, that kind of thing, and meeting lifelong friends. And Raiders had more of an impact on me than even Empire Strikes Back did. I saw that film probably 10 times in the theater. I was very lucky in that way. I was able to just be dropped off and saw it tons, so I was completely ready for Blade Runner.
And you saw Bond that summer too, right, for Your Eyes Only?
Summer '81, of course. Yeah, I'd seen every Bond in the theater since Man with a Golden Gun. I had grandparents that took me to see that one, so I had seen every Bond in the theater from 1975 on.
And I think in a way that's what Indiana Jones did for us. It kind of felt new, like it was going to be our Bond. It was a new character and it was action adventure. It was so unlike Star Wars in that sense, but still it had that sort of fantastical element when it came together at the end. But just the adrenaline rush of that type of picture set a mold in all of our minds of something we'd want to see. And I think that's why so many of these films, when we finally would come up against them in '82, they wouldn't be what we would expect. And I think that's sort of the enduring quality of a lot of them, is the fact that some of them met expectations, many of them exceeded expectations, and some of them were completely not what you expected at all and ended up growing on you, sort of gnawing at you, and you just sort of couldn't escape it. And many of them were just so far ahead of themselves, they would be ignored or sort of like set aside only to be rediscovered later and championed, and then some of them would get sequels 20 years later. So it's almost a summer of open possibilities. To think about, here we are all of these years later, and almost all the films we're going to mention are films that everyone's going to know, everyone's familiar with. They're just sort of ingrained into our film collections.
Just so many films that year were just iconic.
When I look over this list, so many of them are branded entertainments of a pre-established property of some sort. But the first film out of the gate was certainly a known property. And by the time it hit the big screen, we had already had Superman the movie. So we had had a successful superhero sort of from the comic book pages reach the big screen. But when Conan the Barbarian was announced, and I saw that R rating, I knew that was going to be a challenge, and that was going to be a film I wanted to see.
Sure. I had a couple comics back before the movie came out. Wish I still had them now, but yeah, because I was early in the run. Because I think Marvel did the Conan comics from like 1970 through 1993 or something like that. So they had a long run with them, and they even had like the Savage Sword of Conan, a couple different titles. But yeah, I love the comics, and that was, thank God I had cool grandparents, and my grandpa took me to go see that one, and did not disappoint. Didn't cover my eyes once during it, and it was like, wow, what a great grandpa.
This is the Hollywood
I
Gauntlet.
didn't care more than words can say.